Hi, this is Rob Chadwick from ADL, and this is the 13th in a series of quick tutorial videos on how to create content in the Virtual World Framework Sandbox application. In the last video, we talked about your inventory, and I want to change topics again for this video. You'll notice in the global inventory here, I've got a couple of interesting things under particles. Let me just pull one of these up, create it. Very nice. You see we've got some kind of like fire going on there. I want to talk today about particle systems. For those of you who are kind of following these in order, of course, the global inventory is the place where I can store different tutorials and demos and things for other people to pull in, and you can publish things for other people to examine and reuse. So you'll notice I just created an object here, and it's pretty interesting, right? It's like fire, and it's got this big trail of smoke, and it's got this little icon that floats on top of it. This icon represents a particle system. And when you're in selection mode, you can just click on that icon to select the particle system, and the move and rotate and scale tools work just like you'd expect. You'll notice this guy is really kind of an interesting object. I can even move this around and kind of draw the smoke. I'm going to show you how to get towards this. I don't know that I'll build the whole thing, but I'll show you how to get towards things like this. There's all kinds of different things you can do with particle systems. Just like normal, I'm going to hit the delete button on the keyboard to get rid of that, because since I'm making a demo, I want to start from scratch. I'm going to slide over in my environment. This is that same desert environment we've been working with. And I'm going to create a blank particle system. It doesn't start looking like much. Let's go to Create, Particles, Basic. There's only one kind of particle system, and everything else is a modification of it. Here's my basic particle system. You'll notice that it is just sitting there doing nothing, fading from black to white. The real magic with this happens in the object properties. I'm going to pull up the object property window and open the particle system settings. And wow, there's a pretty big list of settings here. I am not going to go over what every one of these things does. I think it would take too long, and I'm trying to keep these down around 6 or 7 minutes. A particle system is a whole bunch of individual kind of sprites, little pictures of imagery that have some rules about how they move. So you don't have to specify exactly how they behave. You specify these rules, and the system takes care of making them all move kind of randomly within those rules. In this case, we start with all these default settings, and they all generate at exactly the same place, with exactly the same size, with no spin or momentum or anything. So there's not much to look at. The very first thing I want to do is I want to switch over the velocity property. I've got min and max velocities, and currently we're in Cartesian velocity mode, which simply means that we're just going to specify the XYZ like you normally would. Watch what happens if I give it a maximum velocity on the Z. Some of them are moving up very quickly, and some of them are moving up slowly. Let's turn the maximum up for each of these different directions. Hey, look at this. Now these objects are being generated at this point and flying off in that direction. These sliders up here control all kinds of things. Many of them have a start and end. So if I want the size to start smaller, I'll pull the start size down. Now you can actually barely see these objects because some of them are ending right on top of each other. Let me go ahead and make the minimum velocity, at least in one of these orientations, greater, so that you can see how they start very small and they grow very large. Isn't that interesting? Very good. We can also make them change color over time. Let's do this. Let's do the color, start color, end color. Here we go. So I'm going to click the color picker here, and I'm going to set it to red. There we go, and let's make the end color. Of course. There we are. Okay, start color and end color. So you can see that. I can also change the color variation. This gives them some random colorness. White would correspond to 111, which would correspond to lots of variation. Whatever. I'm not going to set up all the different ways you can create particle systems with this. There's a lot of flexibility here. Something else that's kind of interesting to do is to change the emitter size. In this case, well, I'll leave those velocities the way they are. You'll see my emitter is 0, 0, 0, and it's a point. There's really no size for a point. But if I make it a sphere, 0 to 1 for the first two components here specifies a distance around a radius. And then the radius of the sphere is the third number. So in this case, it's a full sphere. It's not like a section of a sphere, like an orange slice, which I could get by making this 0.5. Those particles all generate somewhere within that volume with this end color that is red, this start color that's white, with lots of color variation, and a radius of 2. And then they all have these same randomly generated velocities. They've got a start and an end. I can make the size range greater, which would have some kind of randomness to the size. I can pick an image. Let's do this. Let's go back up. And I have a special category here for particle textures. You can use any texture, but some of them are more useful than others. Let's grab this one. Now look at that. There are all these random kind of puffs of smoke. They do look crazy, all multicolored, so maybe I'm just going to dial this back to have no color variation. And we'll start and end on white. And you can see now I have this really interesting fog color. Oops, and I kind of deselected. There we go. Hey, look at that. These are currently not transparent. If I want to make them transparent, I would uncheck this depth test. That's going to make these render much faster, and the transparency is going to work out much better as well. Likewise, I've got alpha test. If I turn this alpha test way up, you can see many more pixels are rejected from the transparency. I'm getting long-winded here, and there's a lot of things you can do. Note if I turn the alpha test all the way down to 0, we get these strange artifacts because nothing is rejected by the alpha test. There we go. Excellent. So there you have it. There's some very simple fog, and there's a lot more you can do in here, and maybe I'll have an advanced particle tutorial at another time. In this case, we've just generated a set of fog. You will notice that this one behaves ever so slightly differently than the fire I showed you earlier. The fire earlier kind of left behind the smoke, whereas this is moving like a big solid chunk. The solver type, way at the bottom here, is the value you want to change. And they have very different results depending on what you choose. If I switch this over to the analytic solver, I can leave behind particles in space, in real space, just like that other fire did. However, there's a performance cost for being able to do this, and a lot of the other values change as well. Not everything looks identical from solver to solver. Something I do want to do maybe is just dial down the end alpha so those particles don't like suddenly disappear. They fade out smoothly. There we go. Very nice. So now I've got this big body of smoke that's generating within the sphere that I can drag around space that is leaving behind these cool trails. Look at that. It's probably enough particles for now. Maybe we'll do a more advanced particle system tutorial in the future.